I'd like to ask about interest rates on security deposits. As we all know, landlords, when a landlord collects a security deposit, they have to pay interest back to the tenant at a rate of 3%. Of course, if you know anything about interest rates, that means the landlord is putting the bill back to the tenant anywhere between 5 and 14 times what they're able to collect on that. I know there's at least one bill that's already been introduced. Would any of you like to talk about that? Maybe what you're planning to do to address that if you are at all?
Actually, that bill, hello everyone, as I try to pull it up on my cell phone, that bill will be heard this week.
House Bill
45.
House Bill 45 will be held in environmental matters, I believe, on the 7th, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's the awkward thing about us being here. It's great to be here so we can hear what your concerns are, to be able to respond to exactly what is happening to a particular bill. It's hard if it hasn't been heard. But I think we've dealt with this issue in the past, and as you all know, what goes in the hopper isn't always the way it comes out of committee, if it even comes out of committee. So I was trying to take a quick look to see what the bill did. Can you give us a little more information?
Yeah, sure. The current proposed bill seeks to tie it to the Treasury rate instead of just the 3% per annum, which of course we can't get right now as property owners.
And that's exactly right. And that's, so you're right. And this, as Sally said, it was there was an attempt to do this before. It's obviously unreasonable for any landlord to have to do a 3% rate, because you can't. They're losing money on that. So it is to drop that. And it's not to exceed 1.5%. That's right.
Yeah.
Members, just a quick follow-up question. As you know, bills like this have been introduced pretty regularly over the past few sessions. Why aren't they getting through? What seems to be the hang-up, and what, if anything, can realtors do to assist?
I think what we understand from this one is it did get through the Senate last year.
You have to work the House.
And it did get through the House. It's our fault. Yeah, but, I mean, a lot of things happen in Annapolis, and I don't know if this is one of the ones that got tied up last year on, sign guy, or if it had been.
This is, I'll be very honest with you, this bill is being put in by a Republican, and so that makes it a little bit difficult sometimes.
Seriously?
I'm just...
Okay.
I'd like this to be helpful news. So you asked the question of what you can do. It's going before environmental matters. What you can do is go to the committee and ask them to support this bill. Show up at the hearing and to testify on behalf of the bill. The government is open to you. You're encouraged to be there. So this is put in by one delegate. There aren't even any co-sponsors on it. So if you want to support this bill, you need to support this delegate, and you need to contact the environmental matters. And that's what I meant by that. I didn't mean anything political by that. Reality. So.
Again, when is it being in?
It's at the 7th in the House. And one thing I will say, the Maryland Association of Realtors and also SMAR, you guys are really good about talking to us, writing to us, emailing us, so that we know what's going on. It's always great if we have people spread out amongst all the committees, so that if I'm not hearing it in my committee, there's someone that is on that committee from the Southern Maryland delegation, so that we can find out what it's about. But you guys do an excellent job of either making sure it's on the MAR list or the SMAR list. You do really well.
Gasoline tax right now pays for a quarter of what goes into the transportation trust
The
fund.
carpenter down in St. Mary's County, he gets up every day, gets in his truck, fills it full, and to get a job someplace, he's got to go up that road, is paying that $3.50 a gallon. And we want to take that up some more, so let's make it harder on him.
Look, I didn't
Just so
say.
maybe he can't get on that train. It doesn't work for us in Southern Maryland.
But-
Like our ability to support us in Southern Maryland.
Right. The fact is, we all want more and better transportation. How are we going to pay for it ultimately? Is it a gas tax? I don't know. I mean, all that I point out is the fact that we haven't changed the gasoline tax.
And
since
the original question was, if you take that money, how much is going to come back to the Southern Maryland County?
Right.
Is there some way that you can see that we get more money for our transportation system here?
I mean, I think that's a fair question. My only point is, by the year 2018, there is going to be no additional funding for anything to add capacity on our roads or any of the other 23 jurisdictions.
A delegate Fisher wants to.
Thank you. On this issue, it's important to identify the problem. Like all issues, it's also important to offer up a solution. The Transportation Trust Fund is routinely rated to the benefit of the general fund. That is indeed the case. There's $1 billion that has not been repaid to it. So we need to protect the Transportation Trust Fund with a constitutional amendment to stop that from happening before we even continue the next discussion as to how we're going to fix transportation and fund it in Maryland. Unfortunately, there is no will in Annapolis to do just that, protect it with a constitutional amendment, which just baffles me. So it's very, very difficult to go back to people and say, you know what, we have a road problem funding issue, and we want you to pay more. The reason why we want you to pay more is just because we say that we need more money to fix the problem, rather than actually lockboxing that transportation trust fund once and forever, once and for all. We also need to realign transportation dollars with the way people actually travel. In Maryland, people travel using cars. I think only 3 to 7%, maybe it is 7%, actually travel using mass transit. So we need to realign dollars appropriately.
But if we had mass transit, we would use it.
But here are some solutions. Here are some ideas. And I put these bills in. This will be year number 3 I put these bills in. They've been killed each year. Privatize the ICC. Red states and blue states do this all across the country, where they will sell off toll roads to private entities, and the toll road operator gets the tolls in exchange for giving the state a few $100 million up front. The I-95 toll lanes north of Baltimore to Delaware, privatize those. Road naming rights, sell the VEIP stations, the ridiculous emissions stations, which is probably one of the biggest wastes of money I've ever seen in my life, with respect to state dollars. Not that we don't want clean air, because we do, but why can't shops do it? Why can't dealers do it? Why can't we just license them to do it? That's a $30 million savings right there. $30 million. Sell off the welcome centers. In Maryland, we've closed our welcome centers. So we closed them rather than privatize them. So 4 ideas. These 4 ideas together could potentially raise $1 billion. But what would be the point in doing these things if once you do them, you don't have a lockbox in the Transportation Trust Fund because they keep raiding the fund? Therein lies the problem. So, it's good to identify the problem. It's also good to also have a solution. And I think these are 2 decent ideas moving forward.
You talked about as far as the constitutional amendment.
They're both constitutional.
Yeah. I've been on the record, I oppose the constitutional amendment. What I would like to see, and as John Hamilton said, the money that's been taken from the state side has been put back. It has been put back. Where we've fallen short is the money that's coming from the locals. They ought to be treated the same way as the state does. Any money that's taken from the locals, you have to have a plan to put the money back. We've always had a plan. Every governor, Ehrlich, I think Glendenny took money in his last term. Ehrlich took money, and O'Malley's taken money, but there's always been a plan to restore it. And I support that. I support that. There are times when your revenues fall short, when you don't have the money for education, other things. There's money, there's a surplus of money there. I don't have any problem with borrowing that temporarily. A constitutional amendment would mean that you can't do it, so that if you have those downturns in the economy where you have available money that you aren't using, you couldn't borrow it. But it hasn't been that case for locals. It's been over $1 billion of local funds. I think, where I am on transportation, I think, first of all, you'll get a lot of the rural Republicans, I think, in the end, to vote for some type of revenue enhancement. If you can separate out transit from highway and bridge construction, that's the biggest problem. We see our citizens paying the biggest amount in the gasoline revenues that go into the state and seem to get absolutely no advantage whatsoever out of the transit systems that are subsidized, heavily subsidized. The other thing is that locals have got to step up to the plate. These jurisdictions like Charles County, for instance, wants a transit. I'm supportive of that 100%. But anytime you put a TOD in place, you automatically give the development community untold amount of value. They get higher density, they have lesser parking requirements, they get a more upscale commercial, industrial, mixed use. They get lots and lots of benefits from it. We ought to be setting up special taxing districts so when those businesses locate, they pay into this fund, and then also an annual assessment that goes to operate the fund. We ought not be taking the transportation trust fund to be subsidized and building all these transit lines. So, but as far as the gasoline tax or revenue enhancement, I will vote for one. I will vote for one if one comes up this session. I have in the past, providing I get something out of it. I'm not going to vote for anything in the way of new transportation if Charles County and Southern Maryland doesn't get a piece of pie.